I just took a nap, BSJ, so I might be a little
So you're
tired.
feeling fresh, is what you're saying. Funkadelic fresh. Okay.
BananaSlamJaron.
Welcome back, everybody. We're back with another episode of the BananaSlamJaron podcast. We are partnered with Prediction, so if you're looking to follow all of their stuff, it is on. You can see in the top right. You can follow them on Twitter. Same username on Twitch, Prediction Esports, and then it's also on Spotify and iTunes. All of our podcast episodes can be found there. So the visual version, I always upload to my own YouTube. Jaron's too lazy to upload it to his own YouTube or anything like that. So for now, that's where you guys can get it from me. But if you are interested in the prediction aspect of it, that's where. And so for today, how you doing, monkeys? Just you and I today.
I'm doing all right. Kind of tired. It's been a long week, but happy to be here. How about
Why has it
yourself?
been a long week? I thought you said you had no games for your team. You scrimming a lot or other real life stuff or what?
Just real life stuff that I don't really want to get into on the podcast.
Tell us about all your personal good and bad things going on. I'm kidding. So, yeah, I understand. I've had a pretty busy week myself, but for me, it's like, it just feels like there's not enough hours in the day. You know, I always hear these adults talk about not having enough time, and I'm like, that's a load of shit. And now it's like, now that okay, so here's what I've realized, right? When it comes to just doing my stream and just existing, it's like just staying where I'm at. I have all the time in the world, you know?
Yeah.
I can do whatever. But the second I'm trying to grow as a person, whether or not that's a stream or whether or not that's, learn something new, all of a sudden my time's just gone. I'm like, shit, man, all my spare time is being spent on these things. So, like, today, this isn't like a complaint or anything, but I lost a bet to Collie, so I had to make her a 3-course meal. And I'm like learning how to cook and shit. And since I had to learn how to cook, I had to go grocery shop all this shit, maybe like 4 hours of my time total is just gone. And I'm like, holy shit, I've been busy the last 3 days with this shit. But it's important for me to grow as a human being, you know? So I'm sure you can relate. You know what I mean?
What was the bet you lost to Collie?
It was like 2 months ago I lost the bet, and it was a last pick Timbersaw game. And she bet me that I couldn't win the game, and I said, this is a perfect Timbersaw game. And I went like 10-0-15, and I lost the fucking game, dude. I was angry. So, I blame my teammates, as always. What can you do? But she had originally wanted me to do something else, and I'm like, I just don't want to do like bets that result on me doing shit on stream. So here I was like, how about I cook you a nice meal? And so here I am.
Hey,
learning how to cook, man. We all have to, what do you call it? Compromise. I'm like, it's a word with a C, and I can't remember it. So this is going to be a bit of a sellout moment for the day, monkeys. We're going to do this in the opposite order of what we normally do, because we know by this point, I'm hogging the conversation. Half the people have already left the YouTube video, so we want to make sure we get the other half before they leave as well.
Sure.
So we have a Patreon, guys. And you can find all the information on all the YouTube videos themselves, as well as on my channel. And I believe Monkeys tries to advertise it. Not 100% sure. Yep. But if you're interested in participating in part of the podcast, where you get to ask us a question, you get to submit a replay for some funny analysis, that's all stuff we do. So this week, we do have 4 people that submitted a question for the podcast. So you ready to answer some questions, Monkeys?
Absolutely.
Okay. From Scott Black, he says, what are the best and worst aspects of playing Dota on a professional team? So let's just each name one. Let's go bad news first, monkeys. What's the worst aspect of playing on a professional team for you?
Worst aspect? I would say at this point in life, the worst aspect is how busy you get when there's consistently tournaments going on that you have to compete in, and pretty much as you were pretty much complaining about at the beginning of the podcast, just
complaining is a strong word, monkeys. I was just speaking out loud, okay?
But that definitely has a lot. I don't know. At least for me, that's probably the hardest part of being on a full-time team, is just literally having to commit all of your time during tournaments and just, literally always being there with your team, talking about Dota, thinking Dota, just Dota, 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 and you don't really have as much free time to just, go for a walk, or you can go rock climbing or whatever.
The biggest thing for me, I'd say the worst part is having my schedule have to be lined up with 4 other people, and then also
Yeah.
having all of this random wasted time because your teammates are late, the opponent team is late. It feels
that
like the
that
efficiency.
pisses Husky off
Yeah,
like
dude.
more than I can even
Dude,
say.
the efficiency of time when I'm on a team compared to just streaming and all the stuff that I do on my own accord bothers the shit out of me. I'm like, holy
Mhm.
shit, I just had 2 hours of today where I just sat here waiting to play a Dota game, and like all the things I imagine I could have done with my time. So it's not as much how much more time it takes for me. Not saying it doesn't take more time, but it was all about that inefficiency bothered me a shit ton. So,
Yeah.
what about, okay? We went bad news first. The best part about playing on a professional team.
Um, the best part, I would at least say the best part is just, how well you get to know each and every person on your team, and just like, you I don't know, you just have to form that bond with everyone, just, knowing that you can trust each other, win or lose, like, that you're all gonna be making the right play and everything, and I think that is probably one of the more unique aspects of competitive Dota, in my opinion, because, like, you really do have to, form that camaraderie with your teammates that really enables you to be able to, like, play really good five-man Dota.
Yeah, for me, nothing tickles my pickle better than 5 people on each team trying their absolute hardest to win the
Yeah,
game. Like, it's
exactly.
like there is no, like, if you win, you're just better than your opponent. If you
Yeah.
lose, you're just worse than your opponent. Whether or not it's overall or whether or not it's just for that game, that aspect for me, like, there's very few things in life that have satisfied my competitive edge. Back when I
Yeah.
used to play a lot of sports, sometimes I go play poker. But for Dota, that's really one of the only things in my adulthood that gave me that raw competitive, just adrenaline. So for
Yeah.
me, that's the biggest thing.
Mhm.
And even if 5 people are trying really hard in a pub, it's just not the same, right? Like it's just not the same at all, because you are coming together, like you said, as a team, having to learn about each other, maximizing each other's potential, and
Yeah.
you have to discuss very specifically how to come together over a loss. How to come back and improve for the next time. So that for me, there's just no excuses, right? And
Yeah,
I love that
for
aspect.
sure.
I love that part.
Yeah, and that's something I love about my team is, like, literally anytime we lose, we're just like, "Well, gotta get better," you know?
Yep,
Yeah, that like,
an
if we don't
important
we're not
attitude to
just
have.
like we don't start making excuses, we're just like, "Alright, gotta put in more work, boys. No worries, we'll get them next time." Like,
Yep.
we have a very driven mentality.
Yeah. And okay. So let's just make sure we get through these questions. Monkeys was dragging on a little bit. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
my
So,
my bad, my apologies.
no. So from Porter Mikkel, we got, what are your favorite mid casting or tournament snacks and drinks? So like,
Mid
what few, like, if you're in the middle of a tournament, like, if for, I think he's saying for me it's casting, for you it's a
Oh.
tournament. Like, if you're in the middle of a best of 3, what is your, like, go to? I need, get me jacked up, or I need a
I
refuel.
I thought he meant, like, mid-game. I was like, "What?
No,
I'm
no,
not I'm not
no.
thinking about food mid-game."
20 minutes in, pause. I need my goldfish.
Uh, um, I'm actually trying to think. Honestly, my eating habits are so garbage typically when I'm focused on tournaments and stuff, that I don't even think about nutrients or whatever during the
Yeah,
tournament,
tends to
which
take a
I
back
whi-
seat.
whi- which I know is, like, probably not the healthiest mentality or whatever, and I probably should change that. But there's been too many tournaments that I honestly have not even, like, been eating very well, just because I just put it in the back of my head because I'm so focused on playing Dota. So, but I mean, like, whenever I would have, like, actually get a snack, it would probably just be like a banana or something like that. Unironically, even
Yeah,
I know
very
I know
ironic.
memes about
What a
memes about
boring banana answer. What a cop out. Well, to be honest, like, every time I cast a tournament, I pretty much have to have, like, a Red Bull every best of 3. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, my energy tanks, like, somewhere between the first and second game. Like, I just can't come back full because it's like usually when you cast, it's like minimum of 6 or 7 days in a row. And the last two events I did were 40 days or some shit, and with maybe 10 days off, and
Yeah.
so eventually I'm just dead. So I have to have that energy drink. Sadly, it's a problem, but it's life. And then snack wise, definitely nutrients go out the window. I always put on like 5 pounds at an event. Uh, I would say my go-to is some sort of pasta. Like I love just any pasta. A lot of carbs,
Yeah.
man. I'm all about the carbs. So I would
I
have to say if I had to choose one when I was in Ukraine, for instance, there was this like pesto pasta that this one place nearby made, and it was
Yeah,
exactly
pasta is
what I
definitely
needed.
a good one just for getting a lot of energy for the
Yeah, and you
tournament.
can just
Pasta is definitely good. Yeah, yeah. You
scoop
can
it
eat it
in real
quick,
quick.
quick, and just be like, all right, my food, period of the day is done.
Exactly. So, for our next question, Longanimity has said or asked, "What is the best to learn at lower MMRs, solo or party queue, and why do you think that is?"
Hmm, best to learn. Well, I mean, first and foremost, everything is important to learn in Dota. But I would say a really good starting point is understanding. Well, first of all, having map awareness, so like understanding where the enemy team is and what the enemy team is trying to like do on the map. You usually you can tell like you see three heroes in one lane on the mini map. Logically speaking, you can go, okay, they're either gonna pressure this tower or like walk to the middle lane and pressure that tower or something like that. Very rarely you'll see through like three heroes in a lane and they're just gonna go, all right, everyone retreat into the jungle. Although maybe that's true at low MMR. I don't quite know, but map awareness is very important for improving overall Dota concepts and actually being able to uh improve your Dota concepts.
Do you
And
think that
at
that's
least in my
easier to
opinion.
do with friends in your game or by yourself?
I definitely think that's easier to do with friends because when you play with friends, you can be like, "Hey, whenever you see someone like go missing from your lane, let me know or something." And it creates good habits of like hearing the micro communications of like, "Oh, hey, uh, Queen of Pain is coming top with level 6 now," and that just helps train you to like understand map orientation and like understand rotation timings and stuff because you really can find patterns and like, oh, mid players are usually going to be leaving at the 6 minute rune to come do this or like this is their goal or this is what they're trying to do with their hero at this time or whatever, and it all really originates with map awareness.
Yeah, I think I personally believe a lot of like hero synergies and a lot of like how things work together really well and how certain roles play together very well is really
Yeah,
important. Like, learning as a forward to play around your mid hero, learning as a mid hero which side lane to rotate to, learning as a support how to support properly a every different one position hero. So for me, I think if you're going to learn, it's a lot about playing with, I would say, one friend that helps you work with one specific combo. I don't think it's necessarily as helpful. At least this is my opinion, right? As helpful to
mhm,
play with a group of five all the time. I think it's good to play with one maybe two friends, so that you can work on these basic synergies because you're working on one thing at once. I think that's my biggest thing about lower MMRs is if you work on too much at once, you kind of just shit the bed, and at the
that's
end of the
true.
day you just don't learn nearly as much because you're trying to learn so many things that you maybe learn a little bit of everything. But I'm
Yeah.
all about the put one thing in the subconscious, right? So if I play a five position, I'll learn slowly but surely how to properly support my one, and then eventually I don't really have to think about it anymore. It kind of just happens, and then I can move on to maybe rotating toward my mid lane or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing for me is I'm not a huge fan of 5 man queues, and I think solo queue can be nice, but a lot of the important lessons you mentioned as well, I think, are better when you're playing with one or two friends.
Yeah, I mean, like all of the basics in Dota, pretty much every professional player or whatever has mostly mastered those just by playing pubs, basically. So
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
uh, uh, I definitely, I think when it comes to 5 man queuing, you should either be doing it because you think that it's like truly gonna like better yourself for like competitive play or something at some point, or you're just having fun with friends. There really should be no in between there for like five-man queuing because again, like five-man queuing, it can be an absolute blast, but you definitely have to you have to understand that it's either for fun or all of you together
I
trying
was
to
gonna
like
say, I
work
think
on a
it's
goal or
important,
something.
right, that if you do only five-man queue, I think it can teach you really bad habits, and
Yeah,
it'll teach you more about the people you're playing with rather than the game itself.
yeah,
And
for
my
sure.
goal is whatever situation you put yourself in, I want that to translate to as many games as possible. And if you play with the same group of five, I think it can be detrimental because of that.
Yeah,
And I think
I,
that's what
I
you're
can
getting
definitely
at
see
there,
it.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so last question. It's actually a very interesting one in terms of I don't think I've seen an exact question like this in my chat before. But Chris Barilski, looks like he's Polish, says there was some discussion during the Omega League tournament about Nature's Prophet and how a simple change from going two null talismans into Orchid and then instead going simple change from two null talismans into Orchid instead of Orchid Rush took the hero from garbage to top tier. And basically the question is, why is that small change so defining? And like, are there other examples of this on other heroes? And like, I want to add to his question, but he says like, are there other examples on other heroes? And the biggest thing for me is, it's like, for you personally, how can such a small difference sometimes change a hero? Or like, why does it take people so long to get to these differences? Or, from your personal experience.
Um, well, the thing about Dota, and we've definitely touched on it before, is that when it comes to these patches, and there are like, even if there's a lot of small patches where you literally see 50 gold get removed from an item or added to an item, or like a 200 gold recipe here, or they remove a random recipe there, like all of these things are like kind of happening in the background, and they're not necessarily relevant immediately, right? And then you eventually just hit a patch where everything just kind of clicks and comes together, and it just creates like that, as you said, that double null orchid rush like on Furion. It just makes it so incredibly viable because you start hitting it by 10 minutes or so, and then or honestly, even before that, I've seen some Furions get like a 7 or 8 minute double null orchid, and you're just like, ah, lovely. Typically, this item that you see at 14 minutes every game is now being purchased at 7 or 8 minutes, and it just all comes together really, and it's kind of difficult to explain the reasoning behind it, because you see like Clinks get shadow buffed for 14 patches in a row, and then suddenly it's like, holy shit, this Clinks hero is amazing, and like you have this combo with Enchantress, and then Ice Frog is like, all right, gotta nerf that shit. Can't be giving a Clinks a free divine rapier at a level 7 Enchantress and a level 12 Clinks. Like you can't really have that interaction in the game for Dota to continue being Dota, basically.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing is that a lot of matchups, like metas specifically, it's like, a hero can go from trash to broken with either a different item being purchased or a different way of playing the hero, a
Yeah,
different role. And a lot of
exactly.
that has to do with just how often a hero is viable. And so it's like, if I say I'm picking Mars off lane, I think he's like a really good hero right now. I'm just using him as an example. Before the mana change, it felt
Mhm.
like the items you had to buy in lane kind of crippled you in certain matchups. But
Yeah.
now I can just go like Phase Boots Bracer and ferry myself a couple mangoes, and I'm like, I have enough mana to function as a hero. So
Yeah,
suddenly, all these matchups where I needed those items, I win those
yeah.
matchups. And
Yeah, and
so, go
and
ahead.
also you can like rush a blink on Mars, for example.
Oh yeah, it gives you
Yeah,
more. You don't have to go some mana item. Like you used
yeah,
to have to go Soul Ring or Drums or Yules to compensate for having no mana. But now it's like some games, if I really want to, I can. I just did it. I just rushed a Blink, and
hmm
it's like, it's just that if you go this double null Orchid build, for instance, it's like certain matchups where you previously needed to stay on the map a bit more, or like, some kills that just barely weren't happening because you didn't have that extra 6% spell lamp on your ultimate. Now they do get kills, and now like you can validate getting, those null talismans, because even though they cost money and delay your Orchid, you're paying back for it because of the extra pressure and the extra kills
yeah,
you're getting. And that's just like the ability to get the item at a similar timing while also remaining stronger throughout the course of the time that you're building the item is a huge difference. Because usually
yeah,
when you rush an item like Orchid or Radiance or anything like that, Battle Fury, the time before you build the item is like a weak point, right? But suddenly, if this hero has like a very linear timing that suddenly hits something really hard too, it's not like you were weak up until any point in that game. Like with Mars, I don't need a blink. I can still be really strong without it, but the second I get a blink, I can pick off somebody that I
Yeah.
previously couldn't have. Those are the type of heroes that I've noticed are always the most popular in the meta. They just have this very predictable but yet consistent and reliable power spikes. And the
Yeah.
ones that I feel like are the weakest are the ones where you're like, at no point in the game do I feel powerful. I don't
It,
feel like the strongest hero in the game, no matter what items or timings I hit.
I feel like it really all stems from just sorry, not to over elaborate on the question,
No,
but
go ahead.
I feel like it all stems from just lane dominators pretty much, and like the heroes that can just you know get out of lane reliably with like a solid net worth and is just able to be a hero on the map. Like for example, Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker absolutely came out of nowhere, but like as I just showed that you can literally first pick this hero and go into any lane, and you can just come out of it with like 4,000 net worth at 10 minutes reliably, and occasionally when you're coming out at 4,000 net worth, their carry is at like 2.6k net worth, and you're just like, ah, lovely. Our first pick off laner just absolutely destroyed the game, and we can just do whatever we want at this point. And it really just does stem from the lane domination aspect of it. I mean, Furion does it as well. What was the other hero you mentioned that?
Mars.
Yeah, Mars also does it. Like you constantly apply pressure, and it enables you to go into the game as just this untouchable hero,
Well, the
really.
perfect thing about Bloodseeker as an example and Mars as examples is because of the Mars mana changes, suddenly these items I come out of the laning stage with at an advantage are items that also function in fights. I don't have to buy these like regen laning items. I can just buy items that my hero needs. And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, now that I'm also hit this power spike, Mars has always been a strong laner. But now that I don't have to buy items that also make me a stronger laner, I'm now just getting this power spike with all these useful items. The same thing with
yeah,
Bloodseeker, where I would say when he gets level 10, he has this power spike where he has that Blood Rage, right, on top of everything else. And it used to be that power spike, level 1 Blood Rage, was 6% spell lamp, which not a very massive power spike. But he always came out of the lane well. Like, I played Bloodseeker right when they reworked him, and I'm like, this hero's laning stage is really strong. Like, I could tell I won all my lanes. But, like, if you win your lane and you just can't do enough with it, the hero's bad, right? Like, the hero's
mm,
just bad. So,
yeah,
suddenly, if they can make a hero that's already good at laning, like, the power spike they hit when they come out of the lane is just that much higher or
yeah,
that much more significant, then suddenly the fact that they win the lane matters so much. And it's such a huge impact on their ability to control the game. So, it's like, with the null talisman thing, it's all about transitioning, right? You're
yeah,
transitioning out of the lane into doing other things. With Nature's Prophet, it's more of this like constant map pressure, split push, team fighting. Like if the enemy team responds to bottom, you TP top and take the tower. It's like, if you can do that while also staying on the map and farming, which is what the new like mana regen null talisman allows you to do, because his weak point for me on Nature's Prophet is like level 7 to 10, and it's not because he's weak, but it's because he wanted to max trees. But if you only left one point and teleport, the amount of times you could teleport around the map just wasn't very scary. But since
mm,
you can max out trees with the double null talisman and never have to go back to base, suddenly you can use your TP scrolls for other things. You can just TP to
yeah,
lanes rather than TPing back to base, then TPing out. So it's like,
mm,
it changes the way they play the game just ever so slightly,
yeah,
but it makes such a big difference. So
yeah,
I know we answered this question very in depth, but I think it needed a very
mm-hmm.
specific answer. So, just for people wondering, that is something you can do on the Patreon. Just ask us any question. If you're a part of the Patreon, you do get to ask us that once a month. So we'll make sure we hit as many of those as possible. But yeah, that's it for you guys dictating what we get to do with our time. Now it's back to monkeys and I. This episode, we've talked about some like pretty hardcore stuff the last two episodes. The last one especially, we talked about the whole North American scene, and then the one before that, we were talking about Jenkins being the stress of content creation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And this was like, I wanted this podcast to be, I told you, much more laid back.
yeah.
I didn't even prepare that much. I had an idea of like, we're doing these AMAs, we're going to talk a little bit about Dota. But, like, honestly, what was the coolest thing you did this week, Monkeys?
The cool Dota or non-Dota related.
Anything. Yeah, like if you had to, first moment of this week that
Uh,
comes to your head.
I would probably say I got a V5 while rock climbing again. So for the
Damn.
first time since my knee injury and being back, so yeah,
Wow. Did anybody
I
see it,
felt
or is
nice.
this we just have to take your word on
No,
it?
I was actually climbing alone when when I did
I don't
it,
believe
so
you then. You're gonna have to prove it on stream.
well, unfortunate,
For
but
anyone wondering, that's just a difficulty thing. So you start at V1 and V5 is much more difficult than V1. You know,
yeah,
I can
it
attest to that. I was barely doing V3s if I was
yeah,
lucky by the time
I
I
would say I would say V5 is like the, um oh my goodness, how am I forgetting the word? It's like it's like that it's a difficulty that you gotta it's like the hardest shift in difficulty, in my opinion, to like actually keep improving your climbing because it's when you start like I don't know, really starting crimps and stuff like that. For those
I
of you
see.
who
Oh, so
know
you have
what
to
they are,
implore new techniques.
I would
Yeah.
say it's the first difficulty that really starts like forcing you to actually climb properly and shift your weight
You
properly
can't
and
carry yourself on like raw
yeah.
strength anymore,
I
and
mean, I'm sure you could if you were that strong, but like I personally cannot, even when I'm like super strong. Like I still have to do proper technique and everything, even when
yeah, it's
doing
kind
it.
of
So
funny when like I got asked the question today on stream. You know, BSJ, when is somebody considered good at Dota? And I didn't necessarily have like a distinct answer, but I think there's kind of like that point in Dota where I feel like I can speak my language of Dota, and eventually, like, there's that threshold where people will start being able to speak back to me. And it's
uh
not because, like, I think 2K people are stupid or whatever, but I feel like the game is so different as you get higher up, and the way you have to think is so different that that's the kind of part of Dota you can't bullshit. You know, like,
yeah,
like, if I was talking to somebody, I can just tell if they're not 4K, 5K, or above. I can just tell based on the way they view the game. And so it's kind of funny where it's like, at some point, whenever you're doing anything, Dota or rock climbing, eventually, you know, there's that spot, you know, that
yeah,
spot where there's
exactly.
no turning back. You have to go all in to expand yourself further. So I will
Hmm.
say, in rock climbing, you were teaching me some of like the basic concepts it took to like the sticking the leg out for balancing, and
Yeah,
I'm like, wow,
flagging.
I'm
Yeah,
supposed to take my leg off of the rock in order to balance better. That's
yeah.
trippy. But yeah, no, that's a funny thing for me though. The coolest thing I did this week, other than making the meal, of course, was that I had a nice day of spike ball yesterday. Yesterday
Oh,
was
that
we've been
sounds.
playing spike ball a lot, so it's
I've never actually heard of spike ball
you never
before.
heard of it. You would like it a lot. So if you ever find yourself in New York, that's when it's like not the winter,
Uh,
totally down to go spike
I
balling. It's
I've
so what?
I've played pickleball recently for the first time, but
Oh, I used to play
I've
pickleball
never
back in
played.
PE. So
Oh
spike
yeah.
ball, you have this like 4 foot diameter net on the ground, and it's just a
Okay.
circle, and it's 2v2, and it's basically volleyball, but instead of hitting it over the net, you have to bounce it off the net. So
Ah,
we
okay.
bounce it off the net, and then they get 3 hits to hit it back on the net, and then we have
Okay.
to bounce it off.
Yeah.
So it can get pretty insane. You do some like
Yeah.
crazy dives and all that kind of stuff, and
Are there like sides, or are you just like constantly
no, it's
rotating
360.
around?
Yeah, you just have to
Yeah.
run and catch the ball.
Huh.
So it gets
That's
pretty nuts
interesting.
sometimes because you're like, you'll dive for one ball and you're just on the ground, and then you have to
Yeah.
get back up and go get the other ball. And so it's a fun game, but yeah, we've been playing it with Kali and some of her friends that I'll start to call kind of friends for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't want to,
Don't want to jump the
I
gun
don't
there,
want to jump the
BSJ.
gun, be that guy that thinks I'm friends with somebody and they don't think I'm friends or whatever. But an interesting concept, right? So this is totally off topic of Dota, but this podcast, it can be Dota people talking about other things. Was that one of the girls there? She had a friend who was from work, and somebody said, "Oh, is he your friend?" And she said, "Oh, he's my coworker." That was her exact response, and I said, are you work zoning this guy or what? Like, are you work zoning this guy? He's not. You can't call him a friend. He's just somebody from work. And this whole idea, I don't know if anyone's ever talked about it. I've never heard of the term work zoning, but like I immediately came to mind. I was like, damn, dude. Like, I know it's bad to get friend zoned, but this guy is straight up getting work zoned right now, and that is
Well, I mean, tone of voice and everything are entirely relevant there as well. Because I mean, you never know. Maybe coworker is more intimate to some people than just a friend or something like that. Because
Well,
they
the
see
thing
that.
is, I think what she was going for was like, I know this guy, and I think he's okay to bring to this gathering, but he's not actually my
Yeah,
friend.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
he does some stupid shit, just remember I didn't vouch for this guy. You know what I mean? Like, you know how like if you vouch for the guy, it
I
makes
can
you
see
look
that side as
bad
well.
if they're
Yeah,
bad. I
for
think
sure.
that's what she was going for. I think like that's why she was like nervous to call him a friend. It's like, yeah, I didn't. I just invited him because it seemed like a decent idea, but I don't vouch for him. That's a funny thing to me. So,
Yeah.
one thing that's going on right now in the world that that depends on when people are watching this that they may remember this, but it or they obviously know what's going on now. But his Among Us, that is a game that I've been playing a shit ton of. You tried to get in our game last night. And I'm telling you, man, I'm trying to organize like somewhat regular Dota nights around this time. And here's my immediate, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like a 10 person, you're on a spaceship, there's two bad guys killing people, and you have to figure out who they are. And so my question, monkeys, from what I've seen so far, I've played with a lot of Hearthstone people, like people that play Hearthstone, and now, I kind of got meshed in that group after playing auto chess with some of them. And I've also played with Dota people. And you don't really have a chance to argue with me on this point. You just have a chance to explain to me why this exists. Why are Dota players so bad at Among Us compared to other people?
Uh, not as much proper socialization for Dota players.
Because I'm not gonna lie, it is noticeably bad. Like so the number one thing that I've noticed about Dota players, Kali and I were actually talking about it last night, is how often if I were to say, "Hey, monkeys, you looking sus, man." Like I have a reason that you're looking sus, but I'm not necessarily accusing you of anything. But I'm like, "Monkeys, you're looking sus." Their immediate reaction is to say, well, if you're accusing me, then you must be the bad guy.
Yeah.
You're looking sus, and it just turns into this like back and forth argument over me
That's
just saying, well, there's something you were doing that was a little bit off, and instead of like presenting their case, it just turns into this random toxic argument, and I'm like, this is actually Dota players. Like I haven't had that happen nearly as often in the other lobbies. So
Well, I feel like at least with Hearthstone, it's like a solo player game, so you're kind of like you're not as influenced by other people, because like you're just kind of left to your own thoughts and your own ideas and everything. But in Dota, like I mean, you can't help it but be influenced by your teammates in Dota. Like it's just gonna happen at
I
some
lost my shit today, man. If you saw how tilted I was today, you would never guess that I won all 5 games. Okay, you would never guess that I won all 5 games that I played today, because my my second game of the day. Okay, this is actually something. This is a nice segue back into Dota a bit. Monkeys. So I admitted that I went a bit off the deep end, and by a bit I mean a lot. So I go into the game. I've got Laylis on my team, and I've got this silencer 5 position that he's like communicating, which is odd to me. He's actually talking about the game and stuff. I'm like, wow, a 5 position that says shit. So I've got these guys in my game, and they're clearly trying to win. And I go into this game with this guy that plays a bajillion bounty hunter games, and he's ranked 300. Okay, and I'm like, I get to last pick this game. I'm like, holy shit, I get to last pick. And it was just the perfect Darkseer game. And I was like, I haven't played Darkseer on NA servers, but I guess I'll give it.
Layla's gave you position 3?
Yeah, he always gives me position 3.
God.
It's weird. He just played mid on 200 ping and crushes it. Or 140. But so I go into lane and I say, bounty hunter, Darkseer, I'm going to rush a bottle. And it was an Arc Warden, right? Like, so I'm like, we can just dive the shit out of these guys. I want this lane to be chaotic as all hell. Us diving them, people dying. If I die, I TP back in and bottle you. If you die, you TP back in and fill my bottle, etc. And I'm like, I want this crazy ass fucking lane. And the guy just straight up leaves my lane at a minute and a half and then doesn't come back for like 3 minutes. Okay? He just leaves my lane. And so we got off to a good start because we killed people at the room, but he just leaves my lane. And then he comes back because I'm actually at a level advantage because of the rune fight. I'm level 3. There are 8 creeps. Like, we have 8 creeps. Okay, we have 8 creeps. Arc Warden is level 2. Okay? And I shell my bounty hunter. and he goes and cuts the next wave and drags it. And their Arc Warden is farming underneath tower at level 2, tanking 8 creeps, and my bounty hunter is dragging the wave.
That sounds
I
not ideal.
I went off the deep end, monkeys. I said, guys, I don't understand how I can communicate this. I was very polite. I was like, dude, let's do this, let's do that. The guy doesn't say a word to me the entire lane. Doesn't say a fucking word. And then after he dragged the creep, I went to go with him. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he just TPs away and never comes back. I was level 4 when Arc Warden was still level 200 tower, and they had a 5 Tusk. And I ended up dying 2 times, even though I was playing really safe because they ganked me. And now I was level 4 to Arc Warden's level 2.
Yep.
At 5 minutes in, Arc Warden was level 5, and I was level 4. And I was like...
That's the joy of
dude, so for me personally... You seem like a pretty PMA guy. I got off to a good start in terms of win-loss ratio today. But when you have teammates like that, is that like what? Do you mute yourself? Do you just accept it? But I was threatening him like bounty hunter, come back top or I'm walking down mid. I straight up lost my shit. I didn't know what to do. I'm like, how do I get this guy to do what I wanted to do? Or do you just give up?
I mean, obviously it's frustrating when it happens, and like it's never ideal. I typically just kind of stop talking in the laning phase because I'm just like, all right, I have to rely on myself to get out of this however possible, and like at a certain point, you just have to stop expecting things from your teammates because like you can typically tell with your position 4 in lane, like you know what they're going to be doing by like a minute and a half. Like if you have a tiny and if he's just like laning with you casting avalanche off cooldown and like hitting the enemy team, you're like, oh lovely, I have a tiny who wants to be active and like use mana. But if you have a tiny that disappears in a minute and a half and you're not going to see that tiny until 4 minutes into the game. Like you're just not. Like that tiny has like a level 1 toss and just ran middle and is trying to fucking get that toss back if he can. But like at a certain point, you just kind of have to like identify what type of player you have and just go, all right, well, this is the situation I'm in. Got to make the best of it however I can, and then when it starts getting relevant for me to talk to my team again, like that, then I have to start talking. Like the next thing you have to look for is 5-minute sieges or level 6 power spike on your mid hero or something like that, and like then you just got to focus on the next aspect of the game really, and just kind of be like, oh well, this perfect laning stage could have been perfect, but instead here we are with this like mediocre pile of shit. But
so here's my question, monkeys. Okay, this is a would you rather. So if you fuck up a lane or whatever, you have a teammate, say you're the carry in my game, would you prefer an offlaner that's trying his absolute hardest to win, losing his shit in the mic, being super toxic, saying he's going to walk down mid if his 4 position doesn't come back top? Or would you prefer the guy that mutes himself and just AFK jungles for the next 15 minutes? What would you prefer?
I mean, can there be no in between there? Can there just be like you tilt out of the lane and then you come back to play the mid game or something?
I'm saying that if somebody is not in the right frame of mind, right? Which I definitely was not that game. Then they're going to do one of those 2 things. I feel like they always do.
I mean,
which one would you prefer, monkeys? You're my carry player. What would you prefer?
I guess just if that's how you have to get your emotions out, get your emotions out. But I would genuinely hope that my bounty player would mute you.
But would you prefer the offlaner screaming in his mic being toxic? Or prefer them not playing? What would you prefer, monkeys?
Be toxic if you absolutely have to, but like if that's what will make you play the game. But in my experience, at least, when people are being toxic, it's usually like be toxic and don't play the game. It's not like because I'm being toxic, this is now gonna enable me to play out the game.
So the biggest thing for me that I took away from my own game, though, I was like, okay, I lost my shit. I definitely went over the edge there. But I tried my absolute hardest to win that fucking game, despite screaming into the mic the entire game. I really did. I really did scream into the mic. I was super toxic. Laylis even called me out at the end of the game, saying, BSJ, you were toxic as fuck this game. And I said, you didn't lane with Bounty Hunter. But hey, I probably shouldn't have given an excuse. All I'm saying is that I don't know what I'm saying here, monkeys. I'm not looking for validation. It was a weak moment for me. It was a bad game. Even though we won. I just ran around the map with Greaves, shelling people and surging them. But it was one of those situations where I felt like if we didn't win the other 2 lanes, Bounty Hunter would have lost us the game. Like, he would have lost us the game if we didn't win the other 2 lanes. And I was just like, whew, deep breaths, man.
I mean, and sometimes, honestly, like just the constantly communicating what the proper thing is you need from someone is the best way to go about winning a game. Because like sometimes like someone is just positioning in such a way or moving around the map in such a way that like it's clear they don't get it. It's clear they don't understand what their role is in the game. And I mean, there's definitely been times where I've quite literally just sat in the off lane for 2 minutes, just being like, "Hey, position 4, can you come here and cast spells? Hey, position 4, can you come here and cast spells?" Just over and over, and eventually, it's just like that they just realize that they're just doing nothing with their time, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sure, Monkey's Forever, I'll come there and cast spells. Why not?" Sometimes it does work, but like obviously, you should try and do it in a way that is more positive rather than like berate them and be like, "You're so bad all the time." But like I understand the need to do that. So I mean, hell, I have those days, VSJ. Like,
Do you have days where you do what I did in some capacity where you say, not, so you're not only telling this guy to come top, right? You know he's supposed to come top because he's just not doing something correct.
No.
And you threaten to break your items if he doesn't listen to you. Do you ever take that extreme? Do you ever stoop to my level, monkeys?
I haven't done that recently. I would say
Okay.
I have done that before in the
It
last
can
one
be
I did. That was
effective.
probably like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago or something. And you're right, it can be effective.
I remember Bird, Eagle, back on Team Freedom.
Yeah.
He had the he had what he called the warning buybacks, where if he was making calls and his team wasn't listening, the next time he died, he'd buy back instantly. He'd play the game still, but he would just buy back instantly. And I was just like, and he told his team, consider this a warning buyback.
Bird was the innovator of suicide into tier 2 towers and to just come back with full health, full mana. He just wanted to die however possible.
Don't we all, to some extent? No, I'm kidding. That's dark, but I think it's such a funny subject because for me it's like, damn, it seems like I look back at myself and I'm like, damn, I was nuts. Like, what was I fucking doing that game? But in the moment, I know exactly what needs to happen in this lane, and it's not happening, and I just get so triggered when all it takes is for the guy to listen, right? Like, and it's like you're not even being rude about the communication. So my question is, you say to the guy, keep coming top, just come top, and eventually they come top. How many of those until you're no longer polite about it, or do you just no longer talk? Like, do you just give up talking?
I mean, again, that's at least my route is like for the laning stage. I would say until 7 minutes on average or whatever. Like that is the time frame that you have to directly communicate with your 4, or that it's at least expected of you to directly communicate with your 4. And like again, sometimes you just get 4s that are unwilling to play the lane the way that you envision it, and like even if you're right, like you have basically 7 minutes to get them to see the game the same way as you see it, and like if they don't, at some point you just got to be like, all right, well, the first 7 minutes are not going to go the way I envisioned it. That's fine. We can still work on 7 minutes to 14 minutes now. Like, we got to play for bounty runes, got to play for siege, got to use our power runes at level 6. We got to use our mid hero in some capacity. Like you can still just like work on other aspects of the game, even if like the lane doesn't go exactly as you envision it. Like sure that the good lane would enable you to like more smoothly transition into the next phase of the game, but it's not required, in my opinion, for the lane to go the way that you envision it. Like again, pubs are so volatile, right? Like,
the lane going poorly is really only bad if you don't adjust to the fact that it went poorly.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it is bad, obviously, like having a lane go worse than it should. But I feel like in all the games that I've played, especially a skill I've learned being an offlaner, as long as I play according to how badly my lane went, it's not nearly as bad as it would be if I tried to play the lane like I won. So I
Yeah.
think that adjustment is super important. What was I going to say? Monkeys, if you want to keep talking, I had a question and
I
it's gone.
I don't got anything right now, man. Don't
Okay.
come to me.
Okay. So we talked about last week that you guys didn't have any games, but do you guys still scrim on weeks off, or do you guys like kind of go more scrims during tournaments, less scrims during tournaments? Like, how does that
Well,
affect your weekly schedule? Like, have you been
right.
spamming Dota, or are you just kind of
We
sheltering?
we we've kind of been chilling a bit since our elimination from BTS or the Great American Rivalry or whatever they're calling the tournament series. Um, but we've been trying to schedule scrims and stuff, but it's just been like the day of comes 30 minutes before. Oh, sorry, we can't make it, or oh, we got this or this player can't make it or whatever. So it's kind of been in involuntary, involuntary break. But um, we're kind of back on the scrim train. We just played a set of scrims today, and I believe we're hoping to tomorrow as well. So we're trying to get back into the groove of things before whenever the next tournaments are.
So, do
you
the
know, we're
boys want to play
coming
Among
into
Us
the
with me
W
or
now,
what, man?
BSJ.
Do the
What was that?
boys want to play Among Us with me or what?
I,
I feel
I'm
like
I,
you, other than
I'm
Sammy
honestly.
Boy, they're all invited.
I mean, all right, yeah, I'll probably be able to get at least Gunner to play. I don't know how much the other three really enjoy Among Us. I have never personally seen Husky, Ocean, actually I saw Sammy play once, but Sammy just yelled at Gunner the entire time. So
That sounds about right. I've realized that that balance in life is super important to have some fun.
yeah.
You've always I've mentioned that a lot, but for me, I just naturally want to work. That's not a good thing sometimes.
No,
And
no, but I mean, I understand that as well, right? Like, I mean, what, like, I don't know, especially with us, right? When the more we work, the more reward there is.
yeah, the more you see, it is
Yeah,
palpable the
yeah.
feeling of it paying off most of
Because
the
I mean,
time.
dude, for a year and a half, I was streaming like every single day for a minimum of 9 hours or something. Like I was psycho for streaming, but then at the same time, when it comes to being on a team, being like mentally healthy and just like ready to do anything with your team that's needed and like everything is way more important, at least in my opinion.
Absolutely, my good sir. So a lot of our sessions or a lot of our podcasts have been going over the hour mark, which that wasn't the original intent, and it's not because I don't like spending time with you monkeys. It's just
It's
we
okay.
want it to be a
I
nice
understand.
digestible amount of stuff. So I am gonna probably wrap up the podcast here. I think it's been a nice little catch up on life episode, and
Absolutely.
I've missed you, buddy. It's been a whole week since I last
I
saw you.
always miss you, BSJ.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna have to come to New York and hang out a bit.
Dude,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I know we're just organizing this shit on stream, but eventually it's actually gonna happen. So, um, I guess until next time, are you gonna be playing pubs this week, or are you just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
will I be able to see you there?
I'm gonna get back into the swing of the
Okay. Have
things.
you avoided me since we're both offlaners,
No,
or what? What's the deal?
I did not have. I genuinely. Again, this last week was just an off week for me, but I'm gonna be playing a lot more this coming week.
Playing a lot of Among Us, I have learned how to push people's buttons and try to see if they're telling the truth. So I feel like your response was genuine, but I'll have
Thank you
to
so much.
see, based on if I queue in pubs, if I'm against you all the time or not. I'll see, if you really haven't avoided me yet. So, with that being said, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll talk to you later, Jaron.
Yep.
Monkeys.
See ya,
Have a
man.
good
See
night,
ya,
bud.
everyone. Have a good one.
Did he vent?